Alright, so now we're going to go in and add some more interesting elements to this explosion. And to make things a bit more unique, we're going to do a few things. One, we're going to set up another particle burst, and we're going to offset it to start a bit later. And maybe this is one of the fuel tanks or something going. And we're also going to have some particles shoot up a little bit, like debris. And it's not going to have any fire or temperature, just going to be smoke. And so it's really all about going in and randomizing some things in the explosion to create some different shapes and elements to make it look more interesting. So to start, I'm going to make a few adjustments to the particles themselves and the source here real quick. Now, from some tests that I was doing already, I noticed that I was getting a lot of fuel in the initial explosion, and for one, I want to have it shoot out a little bit more. And for that, I'm just going to lower the scale of the particles a little bit so it's not emitting quite so much fuel. So I'm actually going to use the per particle radius. And just a quick note here, there seems to be some sort of viewport bug where it's not really refreshing instantly the particle source on the particles as you see here. But if you just kind of scrub back and forth on the timeline, then it should refresh and you can kind of see what you're doing. And as we get quite small there, I'm just going to double the scale of the particle. So it's a little bit smaller, and we got a little bit more variation there. And also in the particles themselves, I want it to shoot out a little bit more in the explosion. So I'm going to have these last for about a frame longer. And this is just going to give it a lot more velocity, an extra frame of velocity to shoot out more. So I'm just going to increase the lifespan to do that. And this should help it with the velocity. And also, I'm going to lower the scale of the emission, the amount of particles emitted, and in turn this is going to emit less fuel as well. So I'm going to half this. Now I'm going to go in and add another directional emitter here. And let's delete these particles, Control Select, and let's use these particles here. And I'm just going to snap this emitter just to the right side here. I'm just emit some particles coming off from this side. So I'm going to select the emitter and parent this. And we can call this maybe directional emitter 2. Now let's just change some of the direction here. So in the left one, I'm going to make sure to emit these particles in different angles just to make sure we get more variance in where they're going here. So I'm going to go a -1 in X and a -1 in Z, and this will just shoot it up back and to the left a little bit. And now the other directional emitter, let's have this shoot up and to the right. So 0.5 and 1, that'll shoot it up and to the right a little bit. Maybe increase the speed just a little bit. And also, so now I'm going to key this on a bit later. So we're going to get a secondary burst of particles, and we're going to start it frame 86. So let's key this at 0, and then frame 87. Let's key it on at 3000, and let's leave it on for 2 full frames, and then 89, we key it off. So now if we take a look, we get initial burst of particles, and now a secondary bit here as well. And I forgot, let's change the spread of the emission to 0.25. So that'll give us a nice spread up there. And I forgot, let's delete the cache. Okay, so if now we go back and take a look, we'll see both our particles shooting up at different times. Alright, so now let's go and cache these out. So let's go up to end cache, and let's cache this out again. And just take a second. And there we go. So now if we just scroll through here, we can really see what's going on. So now let's go in and add some debris particles. So let's create another emitter, and we're going to add this on a separate nucleus. And let's call this debris. Let's set the start frame to be 80. And now we're going to set this emitter just in the same area, and we're just going to have them shoot up for 2 frames. So let's say it's on till frame 82 and only a rate of 100. We really want to see the, we don't want too many of bits going up, but just enough that so you can get the idea that it's debris shooting out. So 100 at frame 82, and let's key it off at frame 83. And let's just set the direction to go straight up in Y, and maybe a little bit back, with a spread of 0.4, and we're going to shoot these up like super fast, kind of like our trails in the first explosion. And this is because I'm just trying to get the same look as what we had with those trails in the beginning. So a lot of these values are fairly similar. And the particles themselves, let's have them last for a maximum of 1 frame with a little variance. And let's change the shading again to spheres. Maybe increase the particle size so we can see them a bit better. And we're going to have the conserve on as well to 0.9. And so this is just going to have the particles slow down quite a lot when it shoots up. We don't want them to keep going on forever. And here we can see them kind of slowing down as we play. But again, bear in mind when we cache out at 0.5, they're going to slow down quite a lot faster, just like in our first trail setup. And so let's set the color as well, like we had similar to before. Let's randomize that. And let's not forget to constrain our emitter as well. So now we should see these particles shooting up. Here we go, and they're slowly going to die off. And we'll just hide fume effects so it plays a lot faster. But keep a note as we cache these out at 0.5, they're going to die off a lot sooner, and there's going to be twice as more of them. So that's what I'm looking for. This looks good. Let's go ahead and cache these out. Let's call this debris. And let's cache these out. Perfect. So there we have it. So now let's go in real quick and let's create an emitter for it. And we're going to have these super small, just like our trails in the first explosion. We're going to have them really small, and we're going to have them die off in scale. So let's do a value of 0.2 for the radius, because we want them to be really small. I really don't want some thick trails at all. Really small. And then again, if we turn on the controller and use a value of 0.2, they're going to get smaller quite fast. And again, the velocity we're going to put really low, so we make sure to not get any of these kind of mushroom looking fluid. And we're going to turn off fuel and temperature, because I just want these to be smoke trails, just giving interest, no fuel, temperature, just smoke. And oxygen doesn't really make much of a difference if it doesn't have fuel or temperature. And let's just make sure again to turn on the color. So there we go. So now let's go add these into our fume container. Whoops, and maybe let's just rename this first debris source. There we go. And now let's add that into our container. And there we go. So now lastly, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add another emitter onto the chopper itself, and it's just going to emit some fire and smoke until the end of the shot. And this is just going to help it as it moves forward. And obviously there'll probably be some smoke in that trailing the chopper, and maybe the engines are still on fire, so that'll make things a bit more interesting as well. So let's just go in and Let's use our alembic cache that we had used before. There's our body here. And so let's make a object emitter of this. So I don't want it to turn on until it's gone through, say, the explosion. So I'll key it on at 83, or say 84. We'll key it on. There we go. And so let's make this shell. Because it's not solid, we just want to emit from the normals pointing outwards. And everything is going to be pretty standard here, although we're going to use the noise map that we've got using here. And so we're just going to type in our map here. So if we take a look at our other body source, we've got the noise 1 mapped in here. Just make sure to use that same map. And let's use this on everything. So on the temperature and fuel and smoke, we're going to use the noise map. And the object emission, let's just lower this to about 1/4. We really don't want it to trail, to take much of the velocity of it. And let's just lower the scale of the turbulence. We can just leave it at 0.5 default value. So the turbulence emitting off of our emitter is going to line up with the same scale as our previous emitters. So there we go. So now if we hide our chopper body here and add this in, let's just recap on what we've done here. And make sure to add the right one. Maybe we'll call this chopper body explosion 2. There we go. So now what we have is we've got a few different sets of particles. We've got them shooting out a little bit longer with less amount of particles. And we've offset another emission forward a little bit. It's going to start as more of a secondary explosion towards the front, shooting out to the right. They're both going different directions a little bit, and we've got these debris particles that are shooting up and dying down. And then lastly, we've got an extra emission on the chopper itself that's going to emit smoke and fire from the noise texture and the collisions to help it collide and everything properly as well. So that should make things a lot more interesting. We're going to take a little low-res sim of this, and let's see how it looks like with everything included.